in my circle? Who the one who be the snakes? Who gon' fold up under pressure? Who gon' understand the stakes? Who gon' wait to get their food to try to take from off my plate? Who the love? Who gon' understand I'm hurt? Who gon' love me unconditionally and try to make it work? Who gon' party once I'm gone and shed a tear once I'm in dirt? I ain't asking for too much, I'm trying to understand my worth.
Welcome to the next episode of Give Me My Crown podcast.
Give Me My Crown podcast.
We back at y'all with another episode of the Give Me My Crown podcast. And this podcast, we're going to just kind of go into a little bit into real estate, what we see the market doing, and kind of go into the ins and outs of buying a house and what it takes to buy a house, what you need to buy a house, because obviously we're coming into springtime, so within the next 2 to 3 months when people are going to really pick back up and start buying houses again, because it usually happens right after the holidays when people really start looking into buying houses again.
Yeah. Most time when the weather starts getting a little warmer. I don't know why that is, but that's when people start buying houses, when the weather gets warmer. The question I got is, I hear people talk about, do I need a real estate agent? Do I not need a real estate agent, right?
Yeah.
Tell us the things that people don't see at real estate, what you do. You know what I'm saying? But people don't.
So as a real estate agent, so because technically, can you buy a home without a real estate agent? Can you sell a home without a real estate agent? Yes, you 100% can. But the problem is with doing that, especially buying a home, if you're buying a home without a real estate agent, you may not know what to look for, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, because real estate agent can look into all the history of the house. Obviously, you can look into the CCRs. You can look into the property disclosures. CCRs is the covenants and restrictions.
Okay, all right.
So what that is essentially, so if you think of an HOA, every neighborhood has CCRs. Not every neighborhood has an HOA, but most neighborhoods have CCRs, which is covenants and restrictions, which is certain things you can and cannot do in that neighborhood. So you may buy a house with the intentions of, say you don't have a real estate agent, and you say, hey, I'm gonna go in and buy this house. You buy the house. Hey, I'm gonna put up a white PVC fence around my property. But then when you get into the house, you realize the CCRs don't allow white PVC fences. Only thing they allow is aluminum, like black aluminum. So that's kind of stuff you can, when you're looking to buy a house, you can tell your real estate agent, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Real estate agent can then look into that and say, hey, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't do that. Or say, hey, if you're looking for that, let me find a neighborhood where you are allowed to do that in.
Okay. Because
also it goes into the real estate agent obviously writes the contract. They're dealing with all the negotiations. There's certain stuff like that a real estate agent is going to advise you to do that you may not do on your own, like an inspection. An inspection is not something you necessarily have to do with every purchase, but it's something you want to do. Even with the new build, you want to do an inspection, because a lot of these new builders, they can cut corners, or they just may miss something, or because they're having, a lot of the builders aren't building the house themselves, they're having subcontractors come in. So some of these subcontractors may miss something, or somebody may go in the house afterwards, or some may just slip their mind. So that's where the inspector can come in and do that. But if you're not using a real estate agent, you may not know, hey, this is a new house. You may think, hey, I don't need an inspection. I can skip over the inspection because it's a new house, so everything is new, so I don't need it anyway.
Yeah. Which
is, like I said, a huge mistake, because you always want to get an inspection, because you essentially have an independent person looking at the house, and they check everything in the house, and they're coming from an independent standpoint rather than somebody from the builder.
Yeah.
Because even though, like, a lot of the builders are pretty good, but you have some builders who are not as good, or who can cut corners, or who do certain things, and you want to be able to catch that stuff, because inspections usually $300 to $600, depending on the size of the house, could be a little bit higher. An inspector may come in at $500. You may pay $500, and they may find nothing wrong with the house. They're very minor things that you don't even that that's not even worth messing with. Some people are like, hey, I just wasted $500, but in reality, you're getting that peace of mind.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the selling side of it, a real estate agent helps because if you sell on your own without an agent, a lot of times you cannot list in the MLS, which is where all the realtors have access to. So if you're looking to buy a house and you're my agent, I can set you up on automatic emails where you're getting automatic emails every single day of new houses hitting the market. So if you're not, if you're for sale by owner, you have to go to Zillow or either ride by the house to see it. And then also with that, the agent is not only just getting your house in MLS. They're doing other marketing tools. They're holding open houses. They're taking pictures. They're doing your descriptions. They're looking at the contract. They're looking at for things in the contract that you wouldn't normally look for. And then they're able to advise you like, hey, this person has this type of loan or this type of loan. I know this will maybe $2,000 or $3,000 more, but this type of loan is going to be safer to go with because it's less risky. So with certain things like that, because a lot of people, when they pay commission, all they think they're paying for is the real estate agent to list the house and that's it. But once you list the house, there's still so much work that has to be done afterwards. And there's so many fires that the real estate agent is putting out that the client a lot of times does not even see.
I can speak to that. So when we were going through buying a new build, people are like, you don't need a real estate agent, but you went to more of the inspections and stuff than we did. You know, so it's like you didn't have to do that, but you did. Like, okay, the upstairs, it was like a board that was real weak. It was like, if I can feel the dip in it, you're a bigger guy than me. We got to get these boards replaced. So that's stuff I know I saw a real estate agent do versus what somebody would do if you were trying to buy a home on your own.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, a lot of times you may just walk in the house as if it's not something you do constantly, you may just walk in the house and not think twice about it. But when I walk on it and the floor dips in even just a little bit, I'm like, nah, this is not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And then even with that, real estate agent can tell you certain, especially if you're going with the new build, hey, go take pictures, or hey, I'm gonna go take pictures for you before they put drywall in, before they put insulation in, because that then shows you where all your wires are running. If you want to hang some up later or do something, you know if a wall is load bearing. It's a lot of stuff like that a lot of people don't think about that comes in handy later. Because even with building my house, I wanted to put a TV on the patio, but if I didn't take pictures before I did it, it would have been tough because I wouldn't know where certain things were going to go.
Yeah.
So definitely stuff like that is best to have a real estate agent for things like that.
Next statement. I know speculation. Do you feel like interest rates will drop going into the spring?
I think so.
Okay.
I think they'll drop. As I've always said, with interest rates dropping, of course, the price of houses will increase.
Yes.
So you're giving one for one. So it's always, because you can always buy at a higher interest rate and refinance down to a lower interest rate. If you can't buy a higher price house and get the lower price, like you obviously you can't do that, but you can always refinance and get a lower interest rate.
I'm gonna ask a question I know the answer to. Do you think we will ever get down to pandemic level interest rates?
No.
Guys, I had to ask that question, man.
But there are a lot of different type of loans you can do. You can do FHA, VA, USDA, conventional. Then there's a couple more out there for investors, but those four I just mentioned are the main ones for regular buyers and also cash buyers. A lot of times, so conventional usually requires higher, more of a down payment, and they also require most of the time a higher credit score. But there are certain banks and things you can go through that require. I know some banks only require 2 or 3% down on a conventional loan.
Really?
Yeah, Like a lot of credit unions, especially for first time home buyers.
I always thought conventional was like 20%.
It is most of the time, but there are a lot of credit unions that will do 2, 3, 5% down. Some of them will do no money down.
But you gotta have a high credit score.
Yeah, you got to have the higher credit score.
Okay.
And their interest rates sometimes are kind of different, because now what we're seeing a lot is VA and FHA interest rates now are lower than conventional for whatever reason. Obviously, FHA is probably one of the easier ones to get because they don't require as high of a credit score. VA, if you're a veteran, obviously VA is the way to go, because the VA, their credit scores are you don't have to have a super high credit score, and obviously you don't have to have money down. So, and also with VA, you don't pay PMI, which can sometimes be hundreds of dollars per month, which is private mortgage insurance. So, and usually you'll pay that, especially with a conventional loan. A lot of times you will pay that until you pay off at least 20% of the loan. Okay. Or 20% of the value of the house.
I'm sorry, everybody started smiling when he said VA. I'm sorry. We all know how he is about the military, so yeah.
But yeah, the VA is, if you're a veteran, the VA is 100% the loan to go with. Obviously, unless you plan on doing something else, because with the VA you have to live in the house. So if you plan on, you have to live in the house, I think it's either 2 or 3 years. So, but if you plan on buying the house to rent it out, obviously you can't go VA. You want to go conventional at that point, or DCSR, something like that, because you have to, one of the stipulations of a VA loan is you have to live in the house for a certain amount of years.
DCSR, go ahead, break that down.
That's it's essentially an investment loan.
Okay, gotcha.
The interest rates are usually higher, but a lot of times with the DCSR, a lot of times with that, and you don't have to show necessarily the income. You don't have to it's a little different, because a lot of times with that you can show the potential rent as the income and collateral for the loan.
Okay, gotcha.
So that one is kind of tricky, but sometimes they do require more down also. Okay. But like I said, that's for an investment loan. So if you're just looking to buy a house, that's not one you're looking into. You're either looking into FHA, conventional VA, or USDA. And USDA is kind of like FHA, but USDA has a lot more stipulations, and it's only available in certain neighborhoods.
Some people said that one is harder to get.
It is. Okay. Because it has an income cap on it, but then it also has it has credit score caps or credit score limits, and then it's only in certain neighborhoods that you can use it.
Okay, gotcha.
And then a lot of loans now, which kind of helps out if the loan is assumable. If it's like say it's a VA loan, say I have a house, say I have a hypothetical, say I have a 4% interest rate, and I'm saying, hey, I'm selling my house and I have a VA loan, it's assumable. If somebody else who's looking to buy my house is also eligible for the VA loan, they could buy my house and have that 4% interest rate because it's an assumable loan.
Okay. Is that for every type of loan, or is that just for VA?
It depends. It depends on the lender.
Okay.
So not every loan is assumable. It all depends on the lender.
Gotcha.
But if I say the loan is assumable and somebody comes in with an FHA trying to buy my house, they can't do it because I'm on a VA loan, and it's the VA loan that's assumable. Okay. So that is all lender dependent. So some lenders will make it assumable, some won't. So it kind of just depends on the lender who the current seller has.
Okay, gotcha. Understand.
And next I'll go with kind of the steps of buying a house. I know we went over this before, but a lot of people get confused when it comes to the steps of buying a house. So the first thing you want to do is get either a pre-approval or pre-qualification. Pre-qualification depends on the company you go with. A pre-qualification is different from a pre-approval. Pre-qualification just says, hey, you make this much amount of money. This is how much of a house you can afford. A pre-approval goes into getting all your debt, running your credit, and actually essentially approving you for the loan. Now, some lenders will call it It'll be a pre-qualification, but it's a verified pre-qualification, which means it's essentially as strong as a pre-approval.
So, question on that: has an underwriter looked when it's pre-approval? Has anybody like an underwriter looked at anything yet?
Most of the time, an underwriter does look at it.
Okay, just check. All right.
With a regular pre-qualification, no, it's just you're talking to a loan officer on the phone. They're doing a quick overlook of your stuff and say, hey, based on what you've told me, this is how much you can afford.
So it's an assumption, pretty much.
Yeah, essentially, yes.
Okay, got you.
So when you're going to buy, when the pre-qualification, when you're in the very early stages, you're not really serious about buying. You just want to know, hey, what can I afford? That's when you get the pre-qualification. But when you actually find a realtor and you get serious into buying, you want to have a pre-approval, because essentially the steps are, once you get that pre-approval, you then want to find a lender who can get you the houses. And the reason not a lender, I'm sorry, a realtor, because not every house that's available is on MLS or things like that, because yes, you can look on Zillow, but not every house is available in there, because there are some houses that are, like say I work for a certain company, say I work for ABC Realty, and there are certain houses or certain sellers that will say, hey, I want to sell my house, but I want it to be, agency exclusive. So what that means is I want to sell my house, or this house is for sale, but it's only for sale to somebody that's also working with ABC Realty.
That limits your money.
Huh?
That limits your market to sell your house.
It does. But I don't know why certain people do that, but I've seen, even with the agency I work for, I get a lot of emails all the time say, hey, this is an agency exclusive listing. So it definitely limits your market. Okay. But I'm guessing there's something behind it that makes it worth doing, but it does limit your market. Yeah. But if you don't have a real estate agent, those are listings that you're missing out on.
True. Yep.
And then you're also not getting MLS. You're not getting when you go buy a house. So there's property disclosure. North Carolina, everybody has to fill out property disclosures. It kind of gives the history of the house, tells when the house was built, last time roof was put on, HVAC installed, kind of pipes are in the ground, any known issues with the house. So as a real estate agent, when you look through MLS, when you click on a property, it's going to automatically populate that information, because that is supposed to be uploaded into MLS when they upload the house. So every time I send somebody a house, I'm clicking on those property disclosures to see if there's anything in there that's a red flag. If it is, if my client wants to see the house, I'm still sending it to them, but I'm telling them, hey, you might want to pay attention to this, or hey, this is in the property disclosure. This house had water damage this long ago, or had this during this time. So that's something we need to look at to see, because say they had a leak in the roof or a leak in the bathroom, and it did damage to the floor. Like, okay, it did damage to the floor. Was there a leak in the pipes where it did damage to the wall that they didn't get checked? Did they only look at the floor? So that's a lot of stuff you want to look at. Okay.
So what if, like, your client going through buying the house, you find water damage. They tell you you're heading the floor, but you find a water leak in the wall somehow.
So
what happens?
So it depends, because when you buy a house, or so let's start up. So when you get a pre-qualification, find a realtor. Realtor's going to send you houses. Once you see a house you like, you put in an offer. So your realtor's going to they're going to submit that offer for you. With that offer submitted, you're going to tell them how much you want to pay for the house. And then in North Carolina, you have due diligence and earnest money. What that is, due diligence earnest money is essentially money for them to take the house off the market.
Okay.
So due diligence is more important than earnest money, because due diligence, the seller gets that money right away. So say you're paying $5,000 in due diligence, that money goes straight to the seller. Seller can then cash that check. That check is theirs.
Okay.
Now, once you go under due diligence, once you pay that money, you have a due diligence period. So say that period is 3 weeks. You have 3 weeks to do your inspection, all your inspections and your appraisal and anything else you want to do. So what you'll do, you'll find an inspector come in and view the house. Once they do that, the inspector has the inspector sends you the report, or sends the realtor the report. The realtor then looks over with the client, and anything in there that they want fixed, they ask the seller to fix it. Sometimes the seller will fix it. Sometimes the seller will give a credit because they don't want to fix it. Sometimes the seller will say, no, I don't want to fix it. Now,
question. So I paid due diligence, right?
Yes.
Let's say we using $5,000. So they got the $5,000. Now we get to the report and they say, I don't want to fix this, but they just keep the 5,000.
Correct, depending on the situation.
Okay, all right.
So there are certain things called so if it's a material fact, it's certain stuff that they have to disclose. They don't have a choice but to disclose it.
Okay.
So certain material facts, if they did not disclose that you later find out, you are able to get out of that contract and get your money back.
Okay.
If it's certain stuff that's not a material fact, say there's something wrong. I'm trying to think. Say they did something to the house, or the inspection report comes back and it's something that's not a material fact, but it will cost. Let's say say it's the HVAC. Say the HVAC system is working, but it's some issues with it, and they're not willing to fix it. The buyer then has to decide if backing out is worth losing the $5,000.
Okay.
Because if the buyer backs out, they're going to lose that $5,000 if they back out, if it's not a material fact for the reason they backed out. Because the buyer, through that due diligence period, the buyer or the seller can back out at any time that they want to. If the seller backs out, they have to pay that $5,000 back.
So you say I got to be sure. Like before I say I want to buy this house to pay due diligence, I need to be sure this is what I want to do.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Because, like I said, that money you can't get back. So sometimes you're paying, especially if it's a hot market, you're having to pay $10,000 or $15,000 in due diligence.
Hey man,
so,
back pandemic, it was more than that.
Yes. So you have to look at it. So say it's a problem with the HVAC and it's going to cost $4,000 to get fixed.
Yeah.
You have to think, okay, is the $4,000 worth me losing $5,000? Because if I back out, I'm losing $5,000. Where if I move forward, hey, I'll pay that $4,000 or whatever. Because a lot of times if it's something serious, a lot of times the seller will be willing to fix it unless it's a COVID market. And during that time, sellers weren't fixing anything because they knew they didn't have to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But a lot of times, because even with the inspection reports look scary when you first look at them because there might be 100 items on that. So you'll look at it and be like, dang, this house is only 2,000 square feet. Why is there 100 items on this inspection report that they're saying something is wrong with? But a lot of times it's certain stuff like, hey, when you close the door, it doesn't latch correctly. When you open the closet door, it squeaks, or it doesn't, or when you close it, it doesn't close all the way. So it's a lot of smaller stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff is not really important. You just want to look for the big stuff, like if it's something like any type of water leaks, any type of serious damage that has been done to the house, that stuff you want to look at.
Okay.
Because like I said, once you pay that due diligence, you're not getting that back unless the seller backs out or if it's a material fact that they should have known about or the agent should have known about.
Gotcha.
Now, when you pay earnest money, if you back out, earnest money, you get that back if you back out before due diligence date because the earnest money is not cashed by the seller. The earnest money is held in a trust account with an attorney.
Okay.
So the attorney holds that, and then when you get to closing, obviously that due diligence amount and that earnest money is coming off the end of the house. So you're not just paying. So say you offer $500,000 on the house, you pay $5,000 in due diligence. That $5,000 is going to come off on the back end. It's not something that, hey, okay, you're paying $500,000, but then on top of that, you're paying $5,000.
Okay.
So it's kind of that's kind of the way it works. And then once you get through due diligence, or not due diligence. Once the inspection is done, then your lender is going to want to do an appraisal. The appraisal is just saying how much the house is worth, whether what you're paying for the house is too much. The agent a lot of time is able to a lot of times the agent is not going to let you pay more, or is going to advise you not to pay more for a house than what they feel is worth. But on the flip side of that, every appraisal is different because the appraiser has his own opinion. So you may have one appraiser come in and say this house is worth $300,000. Another appraiser may come in the exact same day and say this house is worth $500,000.
Have you seen like an appraisal be that lump-sided at all?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And because I looked at one guy I know had one. The appraisal was about $100,000 difference.
Okay.
But the agent and the lender looked at it and be like, nah, based on what we're looking at, even based on comps in the area, the appraisal should not be this low.
Okay.
So they ended up going with they ended up ordering another appraisal, and the appraisal came back for what they had offered.
Okay.
Because like I said, the appraisal is 100% opinion of the appraiser. And the if the appraisal comes back too low, a couple things can happen. You can either, or it depends on the type of loan. So with the FHA and VA loan, you have to sign an addendum, which says that essentially saying that that the lender is not going to lend more money than what the house appraises for.
Okay.
So if the house is $100,000 under, then either the buyer has to come up with an extra $100,000 and put it down to cover the gap, or the seller can then back it, or the seller can lower the price. Or at that point, the seller or the buyer is allowed to back out because of that addendum.
Okay. Gotcha.
With conventional, is not a lot of times conventional is not really important, because with the conventional, they're putting down a lot of times they're putting down 20%. So they're not going to finance over 100% of that house anyway, because they're only financing around 80% of the house. But yeah, once you do that, and then you do all of that stuff through the due diligence period. Once the due diligence period ends, at that point, it's the lender and the agent getting stuff together, getting closing documents together, the lender asking you for last minute items, things like that. And then they're pulling stuff for the seller of the house, make sure there's no secondary loans on the house that need to be paid off, make sure there's no liens on the house, things like that.
Stuff happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I've seen one where we got a week before closing and realized there was over $500,000 lien on the house.
Wow. Okay.
So at that point, my sellers had no choice but to back out.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if the seller can pay that, or if they are able to sell the house for enough to pay that, and they know about it, and they say, "Hey, let's move forward." If at that point you want to verify that they can take care of it, and if they can take care of it, you can move forward.
Yeah.
But that's something stuff like that is stuff that the realtor wouldn't know. You wouldn't know that until the lender starts, or the attorney starts pulling records on the house.
Okay.
So that's something that a lot of times you'll just have to sit around and wait for. But it is very important to tell people this a lot. When you're in the process of buying a house, once you get that pre-approval, do not go and do anything.
Yeah.
As far as with your credit, don't apply for a credit card. Don't go buy a new car. Don't do anything that's going to affect your credit.
Yeah.
Now, what you can do once you get that pre-approval, you can shop around for different pre-approvals. That's always recommended to see who's going to give you the best rate and the best terms. So you always want to do that, because I think it's 30 days where you have to shop around for different lenders. But once you find that, once you get under contract, things like that, you don't want to do anything that's going to mess with your credit, because there's been times where you find a house, you submit the offer accepted, you pull up, you go to your final walkthrough, which is a day or two before closing, and the client pulls up in a brand new car.
Stop playing, man.
And then when the lender runs their credit, because the lender usually runs their credit again 2 to 3 days before closing, and that's just like a final check. If they see that on there, if they see a new car on there and it messes up your debt to income ratio, then that could cause you to not buy the house. So then you're having to back out because you can no longer afford that house.
Yeah.
So that is that's definitely a big one to not do when you're buying a house.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't do anything that messes with your credit.
Gotcha.
So, but then once you buy the house, once you do that, because a lot of times also what you want to do is some people are looking at houses as their forever home, or if they're building these custom homes, a lot of times you always still want to look at the resale value because you never know what's going to happen. So if you make a house too custom, it's going to be hard to resell.
Okay.
And that's just like buying the biggest house in the neighborhood. If you buy the biggest house in the neighborhood, it's you have the biggest house in the neighborhood, but sometimes that hurts your resale value because it's the biggest house in the neighborhood.
It's the most expensive house in the neighborhood.
Yes.
All other houses are cheaper than your house. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know if I'm missing anything. Any questions you got? Because I know you would be from a client standpoint, so it's different coming from a realtor standpoint.
You breaking it down, man. That's all I'm saying. Like, you really putting it out there. And plus, I like to have different episodes. We already at a good time limit.
That's true.
I'm gonna stop it right here and we bring it back, and talk about it some more.
All right, cool. Well, definitely, if y'all looking to buy a house, I am a realtor in North Carolina and South Carolina. I work the whole Charlotte region, so Charlotte and all surrounding. So if you're looking for a realtor, looking to sell a house, looking to buy a house, or if you just have any questions, contact me. My contact information will be down in the link below. So definitely contact me, and we can get the ball rolling.
And if any other real estate agents want to talk real estate,
yes,
podcast.
Especially from different states. If you're from a different, because it differs by state. So definitely from a different state, or even just a different market within North Carolina or South Carolina, and you want to talk about it, we can definitely go into that because stuff changes from market to market.
And maybe the next time we talk, let's talk about some of the hottest markets in North Carolina. And then we talk about why these markets are hot.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I can go ahead and tell you Charlotte is one of the hottest, but we'll say that.
There we go.
Another day.
I don't know, man. Look, it's heating up like in Greensboro.
Oh yeah, in the Triad area it is.
Triad heating up, man.
Yeah, it definitely is. But yeah, we'll go into that another day. We'll kind of break it down and go more into depth in that also.
Okay. All right.
But as we always say before we get off every podcast, this is more than a podcast. We handing out crowns.
Hand them out.
Who the lover, who the hate? Who the realest in my circle? Who the one who be the snakes? Who gon' fold up under pressure? Who gon' understand the stakes? Who gon' wait to get they food to try to take from off my plate? Who the love? Who gon' understand I'm hurt? Who gon' love me unconditionally and try to make it work? Who gon' party once I'm gone and shed a tear once I'm in dirt? I ain't asking for too much, I'm trying to understand my